So it's a pleasure to be back with another Friday course of Digital with Akash. And today we'll be talking about a very, very high demand topic of influencer marketing. We'll kind of be discussing from kind of two perspectives, one from an influencer's perspective and from a brand's perspective, coming from someone who has been perceived to be an influencer with my own following, / having worked for brands managing their influencer marketing. I sort of have to deal with both sides. So I'll be sharing some of my advices from both sides, but they're very useful from either as a point of view because it's good to know it from an influencer and a brand's point of view. So we'll take it away. And just a reminder, so the social media marketing course was last week, and today is obviously influencer marketing. And here is a sort of overview of the next courses to come every Friday. And the YouTube upload has been done for the social media marketing course last week. So for those who missed it, do check it out. I kind of did a bit of an overview about myself and my own journey, which I won't repeat today. So you can definitely check it out. And this recording will be posted live on YouTube after. So if you have to run out during half of it or you want to take notes later, no problem, it will be on YouTube. So be sure to subscribe and yeah, let's take it away. Influencer marketing. So influencer marketing at a fundamental level, what is it? It's basically a form of social media marketing that uses predominantly like endorsements and product mentions from influencers that have a dedicated social following and are viewed as experts within their niche field. And this is pretty much what an influencer is. But it's important to understand why this has come around and how strong of a market it is today. So as you might not know about 45% of North Americans use ad blockers today, which I find is like basically half of people. It's a huge number. And that's what's making it harder for brands to do their marketing effectively because advertising today is sort of dying. So people are now looking for a more authentic channel to get their products across. And influencers seem to be providing one of the best streams for marketers to do so. And this has been proven where 75% of marketers today do use influencer marketing as a marketing tool. And around 57% of marketers will increase their influencer marketing budget in 2020. Obviously right now, maybe that statistic's a bit old because of the current situation, but it shows that the intent to increase this market has definitely happened. And this is because there's around 1 million plus established influencers in the world, with around 500,000 of these choosing Instagram as the most preferred method. Meaning that we are looking at around the influencer marketing industry to be around 15 billion, if not more. You never know how fast it will grow by 2022. So it's definitely a strong avenue for marketers today and / for influencers who are increasing in their birth each and every month. More and more influencers are entering the market, and that's an amazing thing today. And in terms of the social channel of choice for influencer marketing, it's predominantly Instagram that has 79% of people kind of choosing it as their preferred choice, and then Facebook and then YouTube. But of course, this really depends on the target audience. For example, a very B2B audience focus would be looking at LinkedIn. Something that's very gaming focused could be looking at Twitch. So that's very, very important to know where your niche audience is and therefore using that channel preferred for that. But usually for fashion, lifestyle, travel, etc., Instagram is the go-to place and will be the main discussion of today as the sort of the key point. TikTok, I know that's a very important and growing channel. While it is growing in users, it's still quite early on to understand the leverage from a branded point of view, as the content is very short-lived, very hard to portray a whole message, and also the idea of going to an e-commerce site or the links is quite difficult yet. But it's something that's starting, and TikTok has started to allow businesses to advertise in a beta version. So that shows that the direction is definitely heading to TikTok very soon. So influencer. Basically, for me, an influencer is someone who has the power to influence the perception of others, but must have a combination of 3 key factors. This is reach, contextual credibility, and salesmanship. And of course, the higher any of these factors, the higher the potential influence of that individual. And most brands today, it's pretty much the kind of go-to model within working in companies, is this influence pyramid. And it's a very easy and nice way to view what kind of influencers exist today. So you have traditionally your faces. These are your brand muses. For example, with Dior, it will be Cara Delevingne, Bella Hadid, whoever is representing your brand from your global campaigns. You also have your international influencers. So these are the influencers that have a wide range of an audience that will be usually, activated on your global campaigns as well on a social media. You have your top local, which are pertinent to your market. And then you have micro influencers. And this has been a very growing segment of influencer marketing in the last probably 5 years. So it actually can be split up into two tiers. You have the mid tail, which is the higher end of micro influencers in terms of following. And then the long tail, which is sort of like the more nano, if you would, influencers. And then my personal favorite, the brand communities, which is basically the very, very small influencers, less than 10,000 followers, but very, very much the most authentic voice when activated at scale. So when you're looking at the pyramid, when you go up the pyramid, you're looking at more image, desirability, awareness. When you go down the pyramid, you're looking at very much a credible voice and high conversion, because it's pretty much like your friends and family talking to you. Traditionally speaking, most brands today do spend most of their budget, also because they are the most expensive, on the top, higher tier influencers. And also it's usually where most of the priority ends up going, because it's the most attractive one. When you get someone with 5 million followers talking about your brand, it's great, and it's great for image as well. And I put these slides tentatively, but just because I know it will be useful for many people out there in terms of a sort of blanket approach cheat guide for influencer marketing. However, I must say this is just my opinion. It's not something that's right or wrong, and it can definitely vary on specific factors. But and those factors are the country you're located in, the niche and sector the influencer is, the brand positioning, and the social platform. And I'll explain a bit why. So traditionally, just kind of going from an overview and a general point of view, you're looking at over 1 million followers for your international, your faces, the big influencers at the top. Your top local influencers can go anywhere from 300,000 followers to 1 million plus as well. And then your mid-tail, you're looking at around 100,000 to 300,000 followers based on Instagram predominantly, let's just say for now. Long tail is between 10,000 and 100,000 followers, and then your brand communities are between 1 to 10,000. So if you're a new brand, this model will pretty much work for you. It's very safe. It's very easy to go by. But of course, it does depend on various factors. For example, in USA, something like 300,000 followers might be actually more of a mid-tail micro-influencer, because the population is a lot bigger and the choice of influencers are a lot bigger. But if you go to somewhere, let's say like Uganda, where my dad was born, there you're looking at 300,000 followers definitely being perhaps a top influencer in the country. So size of population and demand and the number of influencers are definitely important. Niche is very important too. Like I would consider a top influencer in sewing to have somewhere like 60,000, 70,000 followers, because that's a lot of followers for a very niche specific audience. You're not really ever going to find a 1 million follower account, usually within a very niche audience. So that's very important to understand. And also your brand positioning, by having a brand that's very attractive to influencers, they will dilute their own kind of status to be more attractive to the brand. So let's say something like Dior, we were finding that we would work with people of 1 million plus followers a lot easier, if not sometimes for free, just because of the brand positioning. And lastly, the social platform. This is very important. For example, are you on TikTok? Are you on Instagram? Just to give you an example, something like Weibo, that, for example, 1 million followers might be very on average, because a lot of Chinese KOLs have a lot of followers. You're looking at 1 million being quite micro like there. So it definitely depends on the platform. That's very important. And to someone's question, nano influencers could be pretty much the same as brand communities, absolutely. But I prefer the word brand communities because it brings a lot more of an affiliation to the brand that works with them. And it sort of does separate them from the influencer side, and I'll explain why. Because of the payment. So this is another sort of recommendation by myself, not necessarily saying it's right or wrong. So, I don't want everyone to say this is the go-to model, because it's my own opinion. But on average, to make it easier for people, I would go from $100 per 1,000 followers. So let's say someone has 10,000 followers. You can pretty much use this model to base how much you're willing to pay. But also it does vary because of the type of following as well, and the platform you're on can be very important. So with this model, how I've gone by is saying when you're on the brand communities, you're looking at a very much the gifted approach, making the conversation very authentic and not necessarily going from a payment point of view. And usually between 1 to 10,000 followers, a lot of those community members are very much open to spreading awareness of the brand if it resonates with them for just a gifted basis. When you go into long tail and mid tail, you can pretty much go from this sort of budget response. And when you go from the top local influencers and international influencers, do know there is a sort of curveball approach where it's not necessarily one-to-one ratio where it just increases exponentially, because of course, if you have 100 million followers, there's only a certain amount you can charge. It's not going to be divided by the perfect amount. Just looking at that, actually, it might be $100 per 10,000 followers. So just, yeah, the model. But obviously this depends on 4 key factors: your internal budget, your affiliation to the influencer, how close you are, the timing of the activation. So for example, if I'm working in a period where it's very much a busy period for the influencer, they might charge more. But right now, for example, during COVID-19, it could be a good opportunity to leverage influencers who perhaps are open to more collaborations and accepting a lower rate. And it also depends how you activate the influencer on a 360 basis, not just within a paid post, but maybe giving them a campaign, maybe giving them also a boost on your account. If you post about them on your account, you're basically helping each other. So payments can really vary, and it depends on also how long you contract with them. Is it a one-off post, or is it a multiple post from a kind of a contractual basis? Influencers do prefer to work on a more longer term basis. It's more authentic for the audience. They're believing in it. And also for you as a brand, why do you want to necessarily just have a one post, one hit? Wouldn't you rather have multiple posts where the brand actually resonates with the influencer's audience on a repeated basis? But why do we work with influencers? And it's pretty much the positive words that are often associated with them. You know, they're very good at being credible because they have similar life experiences. They have an authority in that market. They are expert in their field. They also provide motivation, confidence building, advice. There are many other words that people think of today when it comes to influencers, and the benefits are very much apparent. They can help both brands by increasing their sales online and offline and bringing them a closer brand affinity to their own consumers through an influencer as a medium. They also provide authentic testimonials of products and services. They provide content, which usually, you know, brands would go to a photographer. Influencers now are sometimes better than, you know, professional photographers. They can create beautiful content in their own tone of voice that usually is very hard to find you know, you have to think about a studio, models, photographer, editing. That all costs a lot of money, and an influencer can provide all of that in one simple go. They also give you an access to a wide audience in a short period of time. And as I said before, it's the fastest growing social media and general awareness channel today. And the effectiveness of influencers, as I said before, 94% do find it as an effective campaign strategy. But I know many of you are probably wondering too, aren't there downsides too? And absolutely. While I feel influencers provide a huge opportunity for brands, it can also be a potential black hole and a potential risk involved for brands because of several factors that we all know that I'll be discussing later. And that's mainly to do with the ROI and fraud of influencer marketing. So this is where we're seeing a lot of brands spending a lot of their marketing budget on influencers. Some are spending over half of their marketing budget on influencer marketing. And funnily enough, around 78%, if not more, marketers really find it hard to determine if an influencer marketing campaign was a success or not. Because usually a lot of the funnels of measuring the ROI is near impossible. You know, for example, I'll give you an example. If I'm a brand and an influencer promotes my product, how do you really know that someone didn't see it, go to a store and buy it? There's no way of tracking apart from the direct only way of e-commerce and tracking links. So there's a lot of lost sort of measurements and reporting that's done in influencer marketing that can actually make it very hard to understand the ROI. And I think that's why there's a big conversation on that today. And the drawbacks are very, very simple. It's because influencers are getting more and more expensive. They're knowing their worth, and they're getting contacted by many, many companies today. So I call it influencer fee inflation. And I can tell you from my own experience, which I'll be doing throughout this presentation, I've been in a situation, for example, where my rate before, now just to be clear, with my own Instagram, I don't accept paid collaborations. I just do everything organic because that's just my choice and how I want to kind of respect my relationship with my own audience. I feel everything I do post should be organically true and authentic to me. I don't feel I need to get a payment for it. I just rather post about it if I like it. So I stopped taking paid collaborations since about 3 years or 3 years now. But before, I used to get paid for my collaborations, and I used to get paid on average around, put in dollars, you're looking at $2,000 a post. That was a lot of money and pretty easy to get. And I used to get a lot of brands reaching out to me, and usually that was the medium approach. But one brand actually, offered me, like asked me what my rate was. I said $2,000. They were like, oh, no, that's too low. Like you should be much higher. And it was actually an agency. And this is when agencies can be really problematic, because when you have an agency who's representing a brand, they often also work on a commission basis. So they want to get the best rate for the influencer to then get the most cut. Or they don't really have the sort of brand, when you're working internally, you want to save as much budget. For them, they just want to get a quick job done. So I actually got told by this agency owner that, no, I had around $10,000, planned for you. Like I should just bump it up. So I was obviously at that point, I was like, absolutely, just bump up my value. I mean, I want to get more money. That's absolutely great. Thank you. But actually, that's so wrong, because that's not my worth. And I won't ever probably give an ROI near that amount. It's definitely a loss in the books for that brand. And that's actually, in an odd way, even though I accepted it, I felt really guilty, and I ended up stopped doing paid collaborations after that, because I just felt that's when it's going wrong. And obviously, having worked in brands for influencer marketing, I also felt a little bit sensitive to that, because I was a brand owner as well. But what would happen usually in these cases, influencers could now then say, wow, okay, $10,000, that's my new rate. That's my new benchmark. I'm not going to go lower than that. So when one agency or one brand prices you too much, you often then put that as your new inflated value. And that's what I call influencer inflation. But a little side note, but that's why suddenly they're getting more and more expensive. There's also a huge threat of fake or inactive audience, which I'll talk about a bit later. They over collaborate with brands, a lot of ads. One day they're talking about this brand, the next day they're talking about this brand. There's a little bit sense of there's not very much credibility or authenticity going on there, because how can I believe an influencer when they said, this is my favorite mascara, and then 3 weeks later they say, this is their favorite mascara, then which is their favorite mascara, right? And that's often the case with many influencers today. They also sometimes therefore have a trust in conveying the authenticity, even though influencers to date are known for their credible and authentic message, which largely is true. There are cases which unfortunately are diluting the image of the influencer market and creating this sort of like inauthentic message and voice from influencers. Effectively measuring the ROI is very difficult because of, as I said before, there's so many avenues that are hard to measure. And a lot of the stuff is going to like ephemeral content, which is like your Instagram stories or Snapchat, anything that's sort of very then off kind of public facing. The metrics are like hidden to the influencer, and it's hard to understand the value of those things. So some drawbacks to think about if you're a brand owner, but also if you are an influencer or a budding influencer watching, brands are very much aware of this. This isn't something that's like, not known. And it will become more and more evident in their strategies going forward. So try to just be aware of if you are guilty of doing any of these things, perhaps setting the right tone so we can make the market, the influencer marketing industry a lot more sustainable going forward. And this is why, especially with the fake followers, why there's been a lot of deceit and fraud. Because if you're thinking about it, for me, if someone was charging for my rate is $10,000 because I have 1 million followers, but if half of those followers are fake, I kind of liken it to going to a market. Imagine you're going to a market and then you have all these stalls and then you end up selling fake goods, still receiving the money, but at the end of the day, it's fake. I mean, that will be illegal today. That's something that's not allowed. And just because it's super hard to measure that and control that, and I don't feel the giants like Instagram are doing a good enough job, that's why this has happened and allowed to happen for so long. It's kind of like, imagine this market, imagine if it's within a mall. Then the mall would be in damage of, allowing, fraudulent marketplace. And that's why I also question Instagram's role in how they're really getting rid of fake followers and making sure that the market is as true as possible. So it's a big problem today. And unfortunately, and it's even proven by the numbers, like the influencer marketing fraud and fake followers has costed advertisers over $1.3 billion of loss last year by just basically paying for like dead followers, zombie followers, which is unfortunate, but it's the case today. But there are some tips, and these are things that if Instagram is not doing a lot to kind of, and other social media platforms are not doing enough to control it, we can, as a brand, look for things. For example, observe the type of comments. There's been so many influencers I've seen that have done like auto comments or bought comments. And then you also see that the relevancy of the comment is nothing to do with the image. I've seen like beautiful girls being like, in the comments have been written, "Love your mustache." And it's like, well, obviously she doesn't have a mustache. How can no one know that's fake? And sometimes the influencer doesn't even delete the comment. So it's actually sometimes even more easier to spot than others. Also see the audience location. There are many tools, which I'll talk about a bit later, that you can see where their audience is predominantly based. If there is someone, for example, that is European or Indian, and their main audience is in Russia or Brazil, it's a bit of a red flag. And that's a very important factor to know. Also, looking at Instagram story views is very important. It can help kind of judge that sort of real audience and like in the moment live viewing. Having said that, it is possible to buy even Instagram story views. It is possible to buy even Instagram poll votes. So many things can be bought today. It's kind of scary. So there is kind of ways to also like, you got to like do most of these fraudulent tips in conjunction, because you could be caught out if you just look at Instagram story views and you see someone with 50,000 views and then you're like, great, that's incredible. But actually they might have bought it. Another way I would give a tip, if you are getting a screenshot from an influencer and then they post like 10 stories, and if you're seeing around the same story views on all the 7, you know it's pretty fake because they just probably topped it up by buying story views. Usually the drop-off rate from story to story is quite a lot. So you shouldn't have 50,000 views on 7 stories. It should be like 50,000, 38,000, 25,000. You're expecting a huge drop-off because that's just normal. So something to think about. Suspicious engagement rates, very important. Comment pods. This is something very interesting, and I'll be careful. I just want to say everything I know, and I think also it's going to help the industry be more sustainable. And these are my tips, and I have no problem saying it. But whether it's insider information or whatever, I don't care. I just want to be honest. Comment pods is something that does exist today. I've actually been invited in some. They're like called verified comment pods. So they're all verified people. They make a group of around 20 influencers and they go into one comment pod, which is like a group chat, if you will. What happens there is they send photos, and you can be, I think there's a limit in the number of people in a group on Instagram. I don't know, like 30 people, 20 people. You can have multiple, right? So they can be part of 10 comment pods. So then they send the photo the minute they post and say, everyone in the group, can you like and comment on my photo? And it even goes so far where they say, can you also comment that you're going to buy this brand or ask questions because it's an ad and I want to make sure the brand knows that there's interest. So it's like real people. It's not bought, but at the same time, it's still super fraudulent and like deceitful. And I'm not involved in it, and I've never, basically also I never post on Instagram, as you all know. So I just was looking at it and I was really intrigued. But yeah, that exists. So for brands as well, just be careful. You might have a lot of good comments, but there could be from comment pods, meaning that they're not actually going to buy the product. It's just like noise. And then the best, which is my favorite thing, is link clicks. You really can't buy link clicks. And if you're really smart about it, you can even look at the IP if someone does buy a click, but usually it doesn't. So for me, the best metric to know if an influencer is really effective is look at their story swipe ups. If someone has 50,000 story views and has 20 swipe ups, there is a big red flag. So those are little tips that you can do as a brand I would say that there's a risk involved. Like, of course, you only get to know half of this stuff once you've collaborated with an influencer. So this is more to help you build that sort of credibility to know who to use again. If you haven't, you have to take the risk the first time. Or you can go to people like myself, even my own agency I've been doing this for years in my companies. I know pretty much every influencer statistics and link swipe ups because I've worked with pretty much every influencer in the world, in the fashion, lifestyle, beauty world. So I wouldn't name anyone, but I know who's bought, who hasn't, even if they don't even know. So you're also working with the right agency that will also help you avoid these problems in the future is very important. And there are companies that can help you with your sort of influencer management and to ensure that you are working effectively. So one of my favorite ones is Tribe Dynamics. They're great if you're a brand to measure your content. They will create your campaigns for you. They would help you, pull in the feed posts and stories live. So then you have a consolidated area in your marketing kind of reporting that you can then assess the influencer marketing campaign's effectiveness. So Tribe has been really good for us, but you can also see your competitors. So it's a really good benchmarking tool as well. So Tribe is a really good one. Another one is Tracker. Tracker is a very much an all-around robust platform. It's one of the best I know in the industry. They basically do your campaign management, so they can reach out to influencers on your behalf. It's still you, but it's you basically have a platform, like a portal that your brand has access to. But they also have the added like vetting tool, so then you can see fake followers, real followers, audience location, and that's very valuable as well. So you can kind of in real time look at an influencer, see their vetted account, and then decide to invite them into a campaign to speed up that process. So Tracker is a very robust all-around tool. And I know also they're very good in their GDPR compliance and stuff. So it's a good software, might be a bit more pricey than others, but it's very robust for brands really focusing on influencer marketing today. But if you're just looking for an influencer vetting software, what I kind of did in my companies in the past, I try to go for the source. So you have a lot of companies that are really good, and if you have the budget, they're perfect for you. But sometimes you just want to go to the plugin that those companies use, right? Because they're still relying on other softwares to plug into their software, and then they do a bit of an upcharge. So one of the companies I worked with and I really like is called Influencer DB. They're really good at vetting influencers, audience location. So if you're a brand or a small business, I think you can even buy little credits and just search by 10 influencers. So it's very like easy, accessible. It's the cheapest I know in the market. So it's something I would definitely recommend if you're looking for a tool. But there is also the common known ones, a Social Blade, which is a free one to just see the following growth changes, to see if someone's bought followers or lost followers. And Hype Auditor is also a very initially free, but also has some paid services as well. So there are a lot of options out there, and there are probably new ones that I don't know of today, but there's just some of the ones I've worked with in the past and really enjoy. If you are a brand and looking for a robust solution, you have some options there. But for the influencer to be, I think it's only right to talk about my own audience. And, from me being very open to the fact that, I have inactive fake followers on my own Instagram. I've never bought followers, but I have inactive from doing, in the past 3 years ago, I did like giveaways. I've also been active on Instagram for like nearly 10, probably like a lot of years now, 8 years, 9 years. So you can imagine my audience at the beginning is no longer necessarily with me, but it's still a number. So I have a lot of inactive followers. So when I put my profile in the portal, which I'm not ashamed of, I have around 30% inactive, very bad following, you could say like fake following. So I know from my own Instagram, I have 300,000 followers, but actually, like I would go to a brand and I would be very honest and happy about this, saying, hey, let me actually show you my real following and where my audience is mainly based, because I want to make sure that I'm being authentic to you and not necessarily lying to you just by one metric you see on my Instagram profile. So I would say to a company, like I have 300,000 followers, but really if you're looking at the good quality, real following, you can say it's around 150,000 real followers today, or even a bit less. That's like my core. And that's proven by my story views. I get around sometimes 20,000 story views, sometimes 15. So I know it's not 300,000 story views. And I'm not ashamed of it, because in the day, it's what I have right now. And it's not about the number for me, it's about the quality. It's about being closer to my audience. And for me, that's the most crucial, not a number. And interestingly enough, like most of my audience is in USA, then India, and then UK. So having lived in England my whole life, I would go to a UK brand and be like, yeah, but I only have 12% following of my 300,000 followers. And of my 300,000 followers, I only have 150,000 probably active followers. So really, you should maybe only work with me for thinking I'm only going to give that amount of worth back. So it's a very different approach, but I think that's the most sustainable approach. And I feel it's fair. So if many influencers out there would be proud of their data and not be ashamed of their inactive, or which exists so badly, I would really encourage you to do the same. Find your metric, your true values, and promote that as a proudness, because that's what's going to make you be beyond just a virtual metric, and it's going to make you understand the quality of your audience, not just a number. But when I go back to the influence pyramid, I think it's very important to know this. Before, as I was saying, the priority traditionally for companies was going up the pyramid. So for me, I want to encourage brands to kind of refocus, not reprioritize, just refocus and spend more energy thinking down the pyramid. So micro influencers, yes, I think many companies have already started from even years ago. It's not exactly new, but are we doing enough in terms of budget allocation to encourage a strong micro influencer pool for your brand? But more so brand communities. And if you are not familiar with brand communities, I will now explain. So brand communities are a group of brand advocates that are either your existing brand fans, meaning people who love your brand. Like you can think of companies like Drunk Elephant, Glossier, that are really good at mastering their community. They're very much a community-born brand, and that's what's led to their success. Or it can be new brands. So these are basically new brand fans that you're sort of introducing to your brand and making them turn into quick brand fans by, really having that high touch approach with them. They provide a constant stream of trusted user-generated content that sparks a lot of conversation and does boost sale. And I often see the comments from brand fans' photos are far more about the product and the specificities of the product, but also it's a lot more kind of deeper in meaning. Whereas a lot of the more higher influencers, top influencers, there are often comments about the influencer itself and not necessarily the product. So I think if you're really thinking about sales and driving your brand awareness, communities are definitely powerful. Obviously, having said that, they have a smaller audience between 1 to 10,000 followers, which means they can do that and they can be very high touch. So to have this similar effect that you would get in terms of awareness with your top influencers, you really, really want to be activating these at scale. So don't be shy to work with hundreds and hundreds of brand communities and brand fans in a month to have the same impact you're seeing with the awareness part for the top influencers. And also trying to be really kind of tactical with this. Can you link this with your CRM? Is it your social CRM? Is it something that you can really go deeper than just social? Could you invite them to test your products? Could you invite them to an event and do like local led events with them? Like you basically can do a lot more with brand communities. And I think we're just scratching the surface of what's possible with these people. But they also provide beautiful content. They take a lot of time to ensure that the content is standing out because that's what makes them grow even quicker. So I was shocked by working with brand communities in the last couple of years for the brands I've worked with, that the community is often the best out of any influencer segment. And the best part is you usually don't need to pay. You can literally just gift and get a conversation with them, but it's very hard to necessarily activate them. So, there are certain agencies that can help you with that. Even my agency, Akash agency, I do brand communities quite strongly. So it's something that if you are looking to do brand communities, you can definitely contact me or other companies out there, or try to internalize it if you have the manpower. I always recommend internalizing first, but if you don't and you want to go big, an agency is definitely a strong way to do that. And why are they so powerful is because advertising not only have, as said before with the ad blockers, is advertising is totally kind of shrinking, but people really find word of mouth referrals the most impactful form, especially the new generation, Gen Z. Again, 43% of Gen Z did block their ads in 2018. I'm sure a lot more in 2019, 2020. That's the only number I could find on the internet. It is also proven that people customers that acquired from brand communities spend 3 times more in a 3-month period than customers acquired from Facebook ads. So you're also getting a lot more higher conversion rate, but also high purchasing rate from those acquired customers that brand communities bring. And if you really think about it from a general point of view, let's say I'm talking about a girl called Laura, who has 4,000 followers on her Instagram page, beautiful content. She's a brand community, brand fan. A good percentage of those audience is her friends and family, right? So when she's talking about this is my new favorite skincare line, her friends and family are going to be like, actually tell me more, like, why is it your favorite? I'm actually interested because I know you and I know you would only promote things that you like. But you also have very targeted audience who are very much, close to her because of her specific niche in that field. Let's say she's a skincare addict. So you're also very targeted with the community's audience as well. And it's a global discussion today. A lot of publications are talking about the fatigueness of influencers and how expensive they're getting and how communities are in. So while this is very much true, I'm someone who's worked on all sides. I can really tell you, these are just a lot of big headlines to get people to read. the real solution out there, and for any brand professionals listening, it's really about just rejigging the pyramid. For me, I've created a concept called the influence trifecta. You can use it. It's fine. It's not copyrighted, but it's something I created, which is basically to say, don't think of it as a pyramid, because a pyramid for me has a connotation of priority on the top, not so priority at the bottom. For me, it's about thinking of it as a circular kind of all intertwined with three clear segments. You have your faces and your top influencers, which are still very, very much paramount for any business today to make sure they're getting the awareness, the sort of brand image, and the right influencer who has a big audience can beyond exceed sales compared to anyone. Look at Chiara Ferragni. If she posts about something, she will literally sell out the product. So there are influencers who have a very high following, who are the most credible in their field. So that's a very important segment that you can't forget. You have your micro influencers who are super in the sense of that they're growing today more than ever. They're potentially, if you get them early on, you could get a really close affinity with them, and they can grow so quickly to enter the top influencers, but you've got a better rate, a better relationship, because you found them when they're in the micro influencer stage. So think of them as like the rising stars, but also very crucial as well for brand selling. And they have an easier, there's not much a barrier to entry because their rates are a lot more affordable than the top influencers, and they still provide beautiful content and have a good audience. So micro influencers is very, very important. And then, as people said, the nano or the brand communities are so important as well, equally important. It takes a lot of time. You need either a strong agency partner or you need a strong internal team to do it in a strong way. I wouldn't do just 2 in a week. You would do, at least 10 community activations in a week to start seeing the impact, and you want to grow and grow on it as you build your own community. And it can be expensive as well for a brand because you're dealing with a lot of product seeding and product gifting. So that also costs from a marketing point of view and a budget point of view. But you are guaranteeing things like photos, and you can also guarantee things like reviews on websites. You can kind of think of them as your advocates. You can really do whatever your brand needs. It's a conversation, so you can ask them what they feel comfortable to do. So I would just encourage brands to kind of think about their budget distribution and kind of refocus their model on this trifecta to internalize their efforts a bit more, to have a more cost-effective but still targeted communication. So 20 minutes Q&A, so it's perfect. I do have some questions that people have sent me on my Instagram yesterday. I just chose the most diverse 10 that I haven't mentioned in this document, in this presentation, but there are some Q&As as well in this. So we'll go through as much as we can. So how much should we pay influencers? So again, kind of, as I said before, with that kind of rule of thumb approach, I would say it really just depends on your strategies internally and your budget. My first thing is understanding what's your strategy with influencers. What's your goal? Is it to drive awareness? Is it to drive sales? Is it to just drive brand image? And then only from there can you understand which segment you want to focus on. For me, for example, as a brand that's going to be a bit more about brand affinity and brand sales, but also credibility, I would spend most of my budget on community. So that way I basically only pay from a budget point of view of gifting and not necessarily from paying an influencer. So it depends on your brand and what you're looking for, but it's not really a rule book there. And what's the best way to start influencer marketing for a startup? I think kind of that's the same question as I said. Really understand what's your goal, what's your product, and what's your main goal. Is it like conversions or whatever? But the best way would be to sort of start your conversations with influencers. As a brand owner or a brand founder, reach out to people on social media, mini influencers, micro influencers, start the conversation with them. Don't have to go to an agency straight away. Don't spend your money straight away. Just see what you can get organically by being the high touch approach, offering to send a product out in exchange for a review or just to get feedback. And then only once you're starting to see the value of that and people being receptive to the brand and being like, by the way, I received this, I love it, then you can really start your influencer marketing. But that's very important to do it a bit later. Delay it, not straight away at launch. How can you approach brands in the beginning of your influencer journey? Okay, so this is if you're an influencer. I would say the best way to, there is that hard email, hard direct messaging approach, which many people do. Many people have done it for Fable and Main. It doesn't always work because people, I think, fail to know or fail to necessarily understand the internal structures of companies. Usually the PR team can be very separate to the marketing team, and the social media team doesn't talk to the PR team, but the PR team are handling influencers. And then what can usually happen is the social media team doesn't end up forwarding that request to the influencer team. So it can get lost in translation. I think if I was being really smart and giving a strong way, is to kind of use your connections, people that you know, influencers that you know that have direct contacts with brands. Try to like piggy bank off those relationships initially to get really seen. Another way also, which is really effective, is buy the product or one of the products, post an incredible photo about it, tag them, and get on the radar that way. It's really exciting for sure. We've had that at Fable and Main where people have bought it, taken amazing products or taken amazing photos or taken incredible like stories and reviews, and then we've actually sent them further products because we really like what they did the first time. So that's another way to get into that. I think it's very exciting. Have you ever made a mistake in collaborating with the wrong company? I'm quite fortunate. I haven't done many collaborations, as you know, from my journey. So I haven't necessarily said I would make a mistake. And I'm someone who I think I would really be selective of who I would choose. There's been times where, unfortunately, I'm a yes person. I find it very hard to say no. So I sometimes give more of myself than I should. And sometimes I kind of facilitate a conversation and I get so deep into it. And then I end up kind of committing myself to a collaboration. So what I often do is I just often like say, okay, don't pay me. I'll just promote it in my own way that I find comfortable. So I'm pretty quick at correcting it if I feel it's a wrong company. But no, I would say I've been quite fortunate in my very small paid collaboration history that I haven't worked for the wrong company. And that's good. As a new brand launching before COVID-19, should we target micro or macro influencers? I would definitely target brand communities. That's my answer. 100%. Save your budget initially and start getting that buzz initially lower down. And it's more interesting to work with the nanos initially, and it's easier to guarantee. How much has the influencer role evolved in the current times? I think it's definitely evolved. I think a lot of influencers, even like, I'm not saying I'm an influencer, but before I guess I could have been, we end up becoming like advocates in certain fields or voices or have our own businesses. So I think it has evolved for sure, where the audience is no longer like an advertising platform. It becomes more of a deeper connection, and therefore because of that deeper connection and that sort of trust between the influencer and the audience, the influencer loses some of their influenceness and becomes more of like a I wouldn't want to say like a celebrity, but like a mentor or like someone like who they look up to and not necessarily they buy from. So I think a lot of influencers have transitioned into that kind of like business owner, coach, mentor, storyteller, etc. So that's evolved. And I think a lot of influencers have an obligation, whether they want to or not. It's, even me, when there are certain life, there's pandemics and this and that and issues in the world, I get a lot of DMs being like, why haven't you covered this? Why haven't you posted yet? And there is a sense of like, a bit of like, there's no right and there's no wrong. When I posted, for example, all about Black Lives Matter, and I posted a bunch of content, I had some friends of mine, even I would say, well, were kind of not close friends, but good friends, that were sort of like saying things like, oh, but come on, it's not all lives matter. And as we all know, my opinion on that is they didn't get the point of what Black Lives Matter was about. So yeah, it kind of became like there's no right and no wrong, and it's quite hard sometimes. So it's definitely difficult. And we have to be very careful as someone who has a wide audience in a short period of time, how we communicate things and how even and open we are to all our audience, because we have all different audiences with different opinions. How much should we focus on vetting influencers? I would say like, don't be obsessed about it, because it can be like a never ending, and you might just end up vetting everyone, and everyone's got fake followers. Everyone's got not the perfect reach. So at the end of the day, you don't want to be so pedantic about the specific following numbers and metrics. I would say first focus on understanding the value of the influencer and the value of the audience's relationship with the influencer. Forget about the number. I barely look at like a number, like 100K, 1 million. It doesn't mean anything to me. I look at the likes sometimes, and not really. I really look at the comments. What are the people saying, and what are the people really, how close are they to the influencer? Is it a lot of comments that just says love, love, heart, heart, love you, I want to be you, da, da, da. Always people saying, wow, this is really fascinating. Thank you for sharing. I'll research it later. That's a lot more of a valuable comment. And that's a lot more of an affiliation to the influencer. So focus on that first, the value. And then the vetting is definitely important, but more so when you're a brand that has a lot of budget to spend, because then it becomes more about your ROI, right? And it becomes about how much you're spending effectively. How to effectively communicate your uniqueness as an influencer. So this is going back now, as an influencer, try to be as unique as possible with your content you're sharing. Try to also make sure that you're being very, very much yourself. I think authenticity is something that you can't cheat, and it's so like transparent behind a social media screen. I've seen so many influencers that I love and I know very well, and sometimes I see the content for an ad, for example, and I'm like, really? Like, and why is no one commenting? Like, really? Like, this is not authentic. So yeah, I would say just really make sure you are you, and I think we are all unique in a way. So I think naturally your uniqueness will show through just by really being you and not copying and pasting the kind of goal Instagram account you aspire to be, because then you just become like a copycat Instagram account of a bigger influencer, and then you don't really, it's very hard to feel who you are as an individual. How do you lower the influencer fee allocation with budget cuts? I think again, by going lower down in that pyramid, but kind of, I know now I'm talking about the trifecta, but yeah, working, the lower you get with following and you do more at scale, that's how you basically can deal with budget cuts and still working effectively with influencers. So instead of having one influencer at 100,000 followers, just do 10 at 10,000 followers, and you might get them all for free. So, you know, it's a good way if you're having budget cuts, because a lot of influencers above X amount of followers probably will want payment, and that's their full-time job, and it's understandable. That's what they do. They need a living, and I'm not here to like deteriorate that, but you know, there are brands that are willing to pay for that, and that's great, and there are brands that can't. So it's about kind of reshuffling the focus to maybe lower down and doing more at scale. That would work. Should I be a full-time influencer, and is it sustainable? Okay, I'm giving my opinion on this. Again, take it with a pinch of salt, because it's my opinion. I personally believe as humans, we can do so much more than just one thing. I kind of get really annoyed when people say, what do you do? And when in the job application, you have like one button, and it's like, we can do so much more as humans. I mean, I do like couple of businesses, and I sleep in like 4 or 5 hours, but I literally do a lot of my day, more than just digital marketing, more than just my brand Fable and Main, etc. So I think an influencer can have an office job. They can also be an influencer. They can also have their own business. I think the world is your oyster. It just depends on how you do it. And I think by being sustainable is by not putting your eggs in one basket. So I think if you're a full-time influencer, in a way that's not really sustainable, because you're just basically relying on your audience, your social media platform, and those things you don't control. They can unfollow you in a day, and Instagram could delete itself in a day. So if you think about it, that can be a big issue. We have 10 more minutes, so let's go to some Q&As from this live stream. Okay. Cool. How do brands choose muses? How do they know they're effective and relevant? Okay, this is a good, because at Dior, I was also in a lot of meetings about the next brand muses and stuff. It's usually first started in like a meeting, and you kind of discuss who's our next face. You brainstorm. A lot of the factors that are considered are who's currently in contracts. A lot of influencers are in contracts. And that's very important to know, because then they are in say they work with hair care brand, they have 6 months exclusivity where they can't talk about any other hair care brands. And that's a very common approach in having contracts with influencers, to make sure then they're not posting about too many other things, especially if a brand is paying them quite a lot of money for that contract. So first, making sure who's tied in to something else, and therefore it's a no-go, even if you wish to go there. Secondly, it's about understanding your prior muses, and where can you perhaps work to be more diverse, more inclusive, and go a bit more further into like exploring how you can build a brand image from your muse. I think it's a bit boring to have the same type of face and same type of skin color and ethnicity. I think it's good to change. Well, it's not good, it's mandatory to change. So that's an important factor. So I think when you're choosing your muse, there is a sense of like discrimination involved of like kind of tactically choosing where you want to go. But that's okay, because I think that's as long as it's going in the progressive way, in the right way. But usually there's just usually a decision made internally. They contact the agent, they find a good rate, and they make a deal. Someone just here wrote, how do you figure out the white space in a pool of every niche being taken? Sorry. Can you try and be specific on this one? Yes. So the white space is kind of going beyond the social media platform and beyond what's expected in that. So first, what I would do, if I was in your case, I would look at that niche and I would see on average what's being done and on what platforms. Then you kind of tactically look at still staying to your niche that you're focusing on. What can I do that's progressive, different, and even more diverse, and not just on that platform? So for example, I'll give you an example. Digital marketing, even for me, right? It's a niche, right? I've given this 2-month online course, which not many people do on Instagram, right? It's something that I would say is sort of a white space in this pool. And then I've gone into that. Another thing could be really figuring out how to like collaborate with people who are quite strong in that niche, and figuring out together what you can do. You know, sometimes joining forces can make a deeper and a more interesting white space also to be filled. And also kind of expanding the boundaries of the niche, right? Can you go a bit further and open up the niche to be into another niche? And that's another way to, I hope that makes sense. It's very confusing, but yeah, a few ideas there. Another question. There's a lot of questions, but I want to make sure I don't repeat the question. So, is it safe and polite to ask an influencer to tell us their authentic followers? You are honest, and a lot of them aren't. So what? Yeah, well, I think it's absolutely fine. I mean, it's like me going to a shop, right, and saying, "Hey, I want to work with you. I want to buy your product. Is it sustainably sourced?" Right? I mean, if someone has a problem with that, then I would really question: is it sustainably sourced? It's quite a good analogy, actually. So think of it like that, right? Like it's basically like a very fair question, especially today where that's a huge issue, and it's a very obvious issue today. If the influencer is not prepared to share that, or perhaps doesn't even know, there are then the tools that you can do yourself to figure it out. That's also the beauty of it. But I do feel it's sort of like should be essential for an influencer to share their statistics, at least even if it's not real, but their audience, before a paid collaboration. I think it's a very fair way to do it. But if they don't, it's okay. There are so many other influencers out there. You can email someone else. That doesn't really shouldn't stop you. But I think, yeah, you should definitely strive for that authenticity when working with an influencer. Oh my God, there's a lot of questions. How do you get an influencer to see your DM, Zach? Hey, Zach. So it's a very good point. When you're verified or you're a verified account, it can really help. If you're not, you might want to do the approach of like messaging them, like unsending it and sending it again can always help. So you're kind of like repeatedly going back in the DMs. Often DMs are not the best way. So another way would be, for example, to look for their email. I think email is a very, very much a strong tool. But also, if you know that they're very close to someone, there's also that cheeky way of like going to that DMing that, like maybe the girlfriend or the boyfriend, and then asking like, by the way, would you be able to ask? It depends how desperate you are to work with that influencer. But I would first try that sending approach, because sometimes it gets lost in the DMs, and then it's hard to find. So don't be afraid to re-DM them, can also help. And also, actually, the best way is commenting on their feed, but don't comment like, can you see my DM? But comment saying like something that might interest them to check or message you. Oh, what time is it? Okay, 5 minutes. Perfect. If you're looking to hire an influencer, what sort of metric should you ask for to determine if they're right for your brand? I think, yeah, first, like kind of opening up a conversation with them to understand before anything. I would always recommend first showing your brand and getting their opinion. If they're passionate and excited and they say, wow, this is really cool, I know my audience would love that, that's already the perfect best step. I think the problem is we first try to focus on like the rate or the metrics, and then we forget to first ask like, hey, I have a brand. Do you even like this brand? Because that's the best way to first know their intention. And then often from that approach, they often then will go lower down in what they ask because they actually really love the brand. And we've done that with Fable. Like, we're very confident in our product. So we often send it to someone and then they literally come back to us and say, oh my God, this is the best oil I've ever had. I want to do something. And that's been really cool. But if you're looking at specific metrics, I would say I would really prioritize, if you can, their audience location, and their average story views and their average swipe ups that they've seen. Those are three metrics that I think are very important for a brand to think about. Are there opportunities for interns to work in my agency? I'm working on that. More news to come. I'm just looking at the legalities of that and ways I can hire many interns around the world at the same time, because I feel with this whole working from home thing, it's quite interesting right now. Okay, there's a lot of question. Am I wrong if I choose to be an influencer who's willing to take huge payments? Not at all. Like, at the end of the day, like, I mean, I like money. Who doesn't like money, right? It's nothing to be ashamed of. I just think as long as you know in your heart that you're worth that value and you will bring a value of that back to the brand, then go for it. But if you know you have sort of like a million followers, but it's not the most engaged, or you've probably done some giveaways or some fake followers here and there, just, I think, be honest with that and just sort of try to, like, you know, work on your real rate, and build towards that, because I think that authenticity is very important. But no, I mean, if you want to ask for, I mean, that's just me, but if you want to ask for a good rate, I would. I don't even know why I don't accept rates. That's just something I've decided, but it's what I feel. But I'm not going to lie, I do miss the idea of having a couple of $1,000s in my bank. Right now, I haven't accepted a salary, haven't paid myself in many months. So yeah, it's just something I've decided. And more. Okay. How to contact influencers effectively for branding, being a budding brand in the market. If you don't have much budget and you're really finding it hard to contact influencers, email. One thing I would recommend is sort of get a lot of emails from the accounts you like. If you really want it to be really time effective, do like a MailChimp or like a BCC email. Put all those emails you found, go, hi there, this is my brand, would you be interested? Tease them with something that they're interested to come back to. For example, let me know your rate. They love that question. And then you can always go back and negotiate and say, sorry, actually, I don't have anything I can pay you, but I can give you something else. Or even better, be very personal, go, hi X, hi Y, hi Z. Emailing is usually the best way. If you can get the email and contact them, it's the best way to start. Okay, I'm just being mindful of time. Okay, we have a couple more minutes. If you guys have nowhere to go, then we can just continue for a bit longer. That's no problem. There's a lot of questions. Which beauty brands and luxury brands are doing a great job in the domain of influencer marketing? I don't want to say, but Dior, they've done an incredible job because of an incredible person was there. No, I'm kidding. But no, Dior has done a really good job. I'm really proud of the whole. There's so many people involved. I'm just one piece of the big pie who does influencer marketing. We had an incredible PR team led by Tiziana, finding an incredible team of people. They really were so progressive in their influencer marketing and found the most amazing brand users, talents, and yeah, I was really that really inspired me to go further in the more micro community. That was more my domain, and within Dior as well. So I think Dior is definitely the big brand, and one of the things that I worked on was a Dior Beauty Lovers account, which I think has kind of proven itself to be an influencer account for the reposting of influencers and community, and we have loads of followers on that, so that's a proven success. Other brands apart from Dior, beauty brands, I would say the likes of like a Drunk Elephant, Glossier. I think I love Pharmacy Beauty. There are a lot of different brands that are doing well in beauty. Luxury, I love Gucci Beauty because of the actual campaigns and their progressiveness in what they do and how they change the industry. Yeah, that's pretty much the main ones in my head. As a brand that is Simrasa that has just launched before COVID-19, should we target micro? Yeah, same thing. Really do target initially the micro and get closer to that audience. It's very, very important. I would recommend that for sure. please provide certificates for the course. I'm working on that. I actually have spoken to a few people. I just need to make sure legally I'm allowed to even do that. I can easily send you guys just a certificate I make, but I want to make it a bit more legit. I think I might need to do a little quiz at the end to make it a legit certificate. So just be sure you're taking notes and you're listening and learning, because you might only get the certificate once you pass the quiz. But I'll make sure it's easy. So don't worry. Is it better to gift or ask them for the rate? Start always like lower, right? Build on that. So start like, would love to gift you X amount of products worth X amount of money. What also they love is when you also offer some charity initiative, and maybe like, you want to say we can give a donation in your name to X amount. That's really something that the many influencers today are looking for and would be definitely willing to then post it in exchange for donations. So there are other ways than just paid. Yeah, try to avoid starting necessarily with like, what's your rate, unless you really like finding it, there's no luck, then do that. But sometimes just be honest. I only have $200. Can you do this? Do you work with brands in India via Akash agency, and do you plan on getting Fable and Main to India? It's a bit off topic, but I can work with anyone for Akash agency. There's no stopping who, depending on the scope of work. And yes, we are planning Fable and Main in India very soon. Just with the lockdown, it's been quite difficult, but I was speaking to Nika, and we are planning our e-commerce launch there too. I like this question. How does influencer marketing affect your SEO? It doesn't, no, it's not really connected. I would say like, because SEO is basically your Google search. So, I mean, it's actually not connected really like at all, unless you're doing stuff off your influencer marketing in tandem with stuff like, let's say, webzine articles, or like, you kind of have an influencer to write a blog post. That's what's going to help your SEO of your brand terms, but not your own site. So what I would always recommend is, whenever you have an influencer marketing campaign, a great way to build your SEO is having a blog on your site. And if you can't populate it regularly with blog posts, while you do an influencer campaign, why don't you ask your influencer to write an interview or a report or an article on your own website? So it's like a what's the right word? Like a, not panelist, but like a columnist, from that influencer on your account, and then they can send their audience to watch it, and then it's really good for your SEO. It's an amazing strategy that many people, well, no one's doing. Not even I'm doing it at Fable and Main, so I will start doing that. Any affiliated program for working with influencers? Affiliate marketing we'll talk about next week. So stay tuned for that. But absolutely, I actually, with my colleague for the Akash agency, Alice, we actually built an affiliate program for Dior. We opened up pretty much that market within Dior, and we still provide that for them. So I'll talk all about affiliate marketing next week, but affiliate marketing is huge and it's super undervalued. And it's a great, for small businesses and big businesses, it's actually one of the biggest drivers. And also when you're thinking about stuff like retailers, like certain retailers that are winning the game today have around 40% of their revenue from affiliate marketing. And some brands today have 0% from affiliate because they haven't turned it on. So it's a huge untapped market that we will talk about next week. And on that note, I think that's a perfect segue to say, thank you very much for listening. I know there are more questions. If I haven't answered them, please feel free to email or DM me. No, probably email, because I don't know if I'll check my DMs. And stay tuned till next 26th of June on Friday for affiliate marketing. And this course will be posted on YouTube later today. So be sure to subscribe on that, and you can take notes. It's going to be there forever. So thank you, everyone. And I will see you all next week. Bye, guys.